Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Trevor Morrison had built a life that seemed as solid as the code structures he wrote every day. At 42, he worked as a senior software engineer at one of Seattle's most promising tech companies, earned a good salary, owned a comfortable house in Maple Valley, and had been married to Amanda, a marketing manager at a creative agency downtown, for 15 years. To any outside observer, Trevor and Amanda were the stable couple, the kind who'd moved past the early passion phase and settled into a mutual comfort zone. But comfort, Trevor would discover that Saturday night, could be interpreted in radically different ways. Amanda had been changing over the past few weeks. Nothing too obvious, just small comments that Trevor initially brushed off. "You never get jealous of me, Trevor," she said one morning over coffee. He laughed, thinking it was a compliment. "It's because I trust you, babe." Amanda made a face. "But jealousy shows you care, that you're afraid of losing me." Trevor frowned, confused by the logic. "I do care. I'm just not insecure." She sighed dramatically and changed the subject, but Trevor noticed something different in her tone, a frustration that hadn't been there before. More comments followed. "You're so predictable, we're turning into just roommates, couples need excitement, passion." Trevor tried being more romantic, he brought flowers, booked dinners, but Amanda always seemed disappointed, as if she expected something else he couldn't identify. Brad Simmons's 40th birthday party, Trevor's best friend since college, was being held at a rented mansion in Bellevue with a view of Lake Washington. Brad had insisted on going all out, inviting over 100 guests, including friends, colleagues, and acquaintances. Trevor was excited. It wasn't often he got the chance to unwind with friends at a party this big. Amanda spent hours getting ready, choosing a tight red dress that Trevor sincerely complimented. "You look beautiful," he said, kissing her neck. She smiled, but it was a strange smile, full of expectation that Trevor didn't understand. In the car on the way to the party, Amanda was buzzing with energy, compulsively checking her phone. "Everything okay?" Trevor asked. "Great, just excited for the party," she replied a little too quickly. The mansion was packed when they arrived. Loud music, an open bar, guests spread out between the spacious living room, the outdoor pool area, and the garden lit by LED lights. Trevor greeted Brad, who was beaming, and started mingling. Amanda stuck close to him for the first 20 minutes, then said she'd go get a drink and find her friends. Trevor stayed chatting with Dave and Brandon, co-workers, about the company's new project. That's when he noticed Jake Sullivan crossing the room. Jake worked with Amanda at the agency. Trevor knew him from a few corporate events. Handsome, single, known for being a flirt. Trevor had never minded before because he trusted Amanda, but something about the way Jake scanned the room vaguely unsettled him. Half an hour later, Trevor was in a corner of the room talking to Brad about home renovations he was planning when he heard Amanda's laugh. It wasn't her usual laugh, it was too loud, performative. He turned his head and saw her near the bar, standing way too close to Jake. She was touching his arm as she laughed, flipping her hair back in that gesture Trevor knew well, the one she used when flirting with him years ago. Trevor frowned. Brad followed his gaze and made a face. "Dude, what's she doing?" Trevor didn't answer, he just watched. Amanda was now whispering something in Jake's ear, who grinned broadly. Her hands lingered on his arm far too long. Other guests were starting to notice. Sarah, Amanda's friend, looked uncomfortable, glancing around as if hoping someone would step in. Trevor felt something cold run down his spine. It wasn't jealousy in the traditional sense, it was worse, humiliation. He stood there watching, waiting for Amanda to stop, to realize what she was doing. But she didn't stop. She took Jake's hand and pulled him onto the dance floor. The music was upbeat, but the way Amanda danced wasn't friendly, it was sensual, provocative. She turned her back to Jake, who placed his hands on her waist. Trevor saw several people discreetly taking photos, some laughing uncomfortably, others clearly shocked. Brad touched Trevor's shoulder. "Want me to go over there?" Trevor slowly shook his head. "No. Let her finish the show." 10 minutes that felt like an eternity. Amanda and Jake left the dance floor and headed for one of the couches. She literally sat on his lap, wrapping her arm around Jake's neck as they talked. Trevor saw Jennifer, another friend, try to approach Amanda, probably to warn her, but Amanda waved her off with a dismissive hand gesture. That's when Amanda finally looked in Trevor's direction. Their eyes met. She smiled, an expectant smile, waiting for an explosive reaction. Trevor kept his face completely neutral, showing no emotion. He just watched for 3 more seconds, then picked up his coat from the chair beside him. Brad noticed. "Trevor, what are you gonna do?" Trevor replied in an oddly calm voice, "I'm going home." "Thanks for the party, Brad. Happy 40th. You deserve better than this circus." He walked across the room without looking at Amanda again, nodded to a few people, and walked out the front door. It took Amanda about 5 seconds to process what had happened. She quickly got up from Jake's lap, nearly tripping in her heels, and ran after Trevor. She caught up to him in the parking lot, out of breath. "Trevor. Trevor, wait." He already had his car keys in hand, opening the door. "Trevor, it was just a test." She was laughing nervously, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "A test to see if you still care about me, if you still have passion, if you get jealous." Trevor stopped and slowly turned around. His face looked different, an expression Amanda had never seen before. Cold. Distant. "Congratulations, Amanda," he said slowly. "You passed the test. I found out I don't care anymore." He got into the car. Amanda pounded on the window. "Trevor, don't do this, it was just a stupid TikTok thing I saw, meant to reignite passion, everyone does it." He started the engine without responding and drove out of the parking lot, leaving Amanda standing there in her high heels and red dress, completely lost. On the drive home, Trevor drove on autopilot while his mind raced at full speed. 15 years of marriage. 15 years of trust, companionship, future plans. And she chose to humiliate him publicly, in front of friends, colleagues, acquaintances, as a social media experiment. He gripped the steering wheel tightly. It wasn't about Jake, it was about the absolute disrespect. She'd planned it, invited the guy, carried out the performance, everything calculated. Trevor felt anger, but it was a cold, analytical anger. He wasn't usually impulsive, but some lines couldn't be crossed. And Amanda hadn't just crossed one, she'd blown it up. He got home at 11:15 p.m. The house was quiet and dark. Trevor turned on the lights and went straight to his office to boot up his computer. First action, he left a voicemail for Robert Stern, his divorce attorney, a contact he'd kept from a colleague who'd gone through a separation years ago. "Robert, it's Trevor Morrison. I need to file for divorce immediately. Call me as soon as you hear this message, no matter the time." Second action, he accessed their joint bank accounts and transferred half the balance into his personal account. It wasn't theft, it was protection. Third action, he searched for 24-hour moving companies. He found one called Fast Move Seattle that operated overnight. He called. "I need a truck tomorrow at 7 a.m. address in Maple Valley. I'll be loading personal belongings, medium-sized furniture, office equipment. How much?" He booked the service for $1,200. Fourth action, he started packing his things, clothes, electronics, personal documents, family photos that were his alone, books, tools. He worked methodically, without emotion, as if executing efficient code. At 1:05 a.m., Trevor heard Amanda's car pull into the garage. She was back. He kept packing his programming books into a box. Amanda rushed through the front door, still in heels, makeup smudged. "Trevor." Thank God you're here, we need to talk. She stopped when she saw the boxes, his clothes in piles, his laptop disassembled. What are you doing? Her voice jumped an octave. Trevor didn't stop packing. Leaving. Amanda let out a hysterical laugh. Leaving? Trevor, stop it, it was just a stupid test. A joke. I love you. He finally stopped and turned to face her. A joke, he repeated slowly. You humiliated me in front of 100 people, sat on another man's lap, danced all over him, whispered in his ear, all in front of our friends, as a joke. Amanda stepped forward, tears starting to fall. I just wanted you to show you cared. You never get jealous, never show emotion, I feel invisible. Trevor slowly shook his head. You made me a fool, Amanda. People were taking pictures. Pictures. Of my wife sitting on another guy's lap. Do you have any idea what that does to my reputation? To our marriage? But worse than all that, you planned it. You specifically invited Jake for this. You two rehearsed it. Amanda turned pale. How did you? Trevor gave a humorless laugh. Because I'm not an idiot. The way you checked your phone non-stop when we arrived, the way you went straight to him, the way he didn't seem surprised by any of it, you two rehearsed this crap. Amanda collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. It was my idea, Jake just agreed to help, he's just a coworker, Trevor, I swear. Trevor went back to packing. I don't care anymore. She jumped up. How can you say that? 15 years, Trevor. 15 years. He stopped again, and this time his voice was heavy with hurt. Exactly. 15 years, Amanda. And you destroyed it all over some TikTok test. You put our marriage, our history, my dignity second because you wanted cheap emotional validation. You humiliated me at my best friend's birthday party. Brad was embarrassed at his own celebration because of you. People will remember that night not for the party, but for the pathetic show you put on. Amanda was desperate now. I'll fix it. I'll apologize to everyone, I'll post online that it was a misunderstanding. Trevor let out a bitter laugh. A misunderstanding? Amanda, everyone saw it. There are photos, videos. You think posting an apology on Instagram will erase the humiliation? He pulled out his phone and showed her. He'd already received 5 messages from friends. Dave, dude, what the hell was that? Sarah, Trevor, I'm so sorry, I tried to warn her. Jennifer, I'm shocked, nobody does that. Brad, man, if you need anything, call me. Sorry. Even people Trevor barely knew had sent supportive or curious messages. The humiliation was public and irreversible. Amanda played her last card. Trevor, I made a huge mistake, I know. But we can get past this. Let's do couples therapy, rebuild trust. Trevor shook his head firmly. There's no trust left, Amanda. You destroyed it completely. I spent 15 years giving you the benefit of the doubt, being your partner, trusting you. And you interpreted that as weakness, as lack of passion. You wanted drama, jealousy, excitement? Congratulations. Now you have it. Just not the way you expected. He went back to packing. Amanda sat on the couch crying as he meticulously separated his life from that house. At 3 a.m., she tried to stop him physically, grabbing a box. Trevor, please don't do this. He gently but firmly took the box from her hands. A moving truck is coming at 7 a.m. tomorrow. I suggest you come up with an excuse for the neighbors. Trevor slept 2 hours on the office couch, woke up at 5:30, showered, and kept organizing. At 6:40, Amanda came downstairs in her pajamas, eyes swollen from crying. Trevor, let me say one last thing. He paused and checked his watch. You've got 3 minutes. Amanda took a deep breath. I love you. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I got obsessed with these dumb internet ideas about relationships, passion, jealousy. I convinced myself you didn't care because you were so calm, so stable. I mistook your maturity for indifference. I was a complete idiot. But please, don't throw away 15 years over one night. Trevor stared at her. Amanda, it wasn't one night. It was weeks of you hinting that I was inadequate, that our marriage was boring, that it lacked excitement. It was months of you comparing our relationship to social media couples. It was you choosing to believe influencer content over having an honest conversation with me. And it all led to you sitting on another man's lap in front of everyone. It wasn't a one-night mistake. It was a pattern. At exactly 7 a.m., the fast-move Seattle truck pulled up in front of the house. It was a sunny Saturday morning in Maple Valley, and neighbors were starting their weekend routines. The sight of a moving truck parked at the Morrisons' house immediately drew attention. Trevor opened the garage and started loading his boxes, his disassembled desk, his bookshelf, his suitcases. Amanda came out in her pajamas, barefoot, onto the front lawn. "Trevor, don't do this, please, people are watching." He kept loading without stopping. "You wanted excitement, Amanda. Here it is." The two movers worked efficiently. Sharon and Bill Henderson, neighbors for 8 years, were in their garden clearly pretending to water plants while watching. Margaret Foster across the street didn't even pretend, she stood at her window with a coffee cup. Amanda was desperate, pleading on the lawn as Trevor handed furniture to the movers. That's when Brad showed up. He hurried out of his car and went straight to Trevor. "Dude, did you sleep?" Trevor gave a tired smile. 2 hours. Brad looked at the boxes, the truck, Amanda crying on the lawn. "You sure about this?" Trevor nodded. "More sure than I've ever been about anything." Brad glanced at Amanda with barely concealed disdain. "She's saying it was a test. Half the party saw the photos and videos circulating last night. Jake left at 2 a.m. She stayed until almost 1 trying to explain to her friends it was a misunderstanding. Nobody bought it." Trevor sighed. "Expected." Brad hesitated. "Trevor, I just found something out. Sarah told me this morning. Amanda and Jake had been flirting for months at work, texts, lunches, happy hours. Sarah thought it was just friendship, but after last night's party, she checked with others at the agency. Their thing wasn't new." Trevor felt like he'd been punched in the gut, but kept his expression neutral. "Makes sense." Brad put a hand on his shoulder. "Sorry, man. You deserve to know." Trevor thanked him, finished loading, paid the movers in cash, and gave them the address of a temporary storage unit he'd rented online at 5 a.m. The truck drove off. Trevor stood in the street, looking at the house that had been his for 8 years. Amanda was kneeling on the lawn, completely broken. Neighbors watched with a mix of pity and curiosity. Trevor got in his car, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. The first week, Trevor stayed in a hotel. His lawyer, Robert Stern, moved quickly. Divorce papers were prepared and delivered to Amanda by Thursday. She tried calling him 83 times in the first 5 days. Trevor blocked her. She showed up at his office. Security escorted her out. She sent flowers, letters, messages through mutual friends. Trevor ignored it all. The story spread like wildfire. On social media, some mutual friends quietly unfollowed Amanda. Jake Sullivan became persona non grata in their social circle. He was confronted by several mutual male friends who thought it was despicable to go along with the test. Jake tried to defend himself, saying Amanda had insisted and he'd been foolish to agree, but the damage was done. At their agency, co-workers started treating them differently, especially after the story leaked internally. The atmosphere became so tense that Jake quit 3 weeks later and accepted a position in Portland, leaving Seattle entirely. Amanda stayed at the agency, but her reputation was tarnished. The marketing manager who publicly flirted with a coworker and destroyed a 15-year marriage wasn't exactly promotional material. The divorce moved relatively quickly because Trevor didn't want to fight over every item. He just wanted out. He kept his share of the investments, half the assets, and his personal belongings. Amanda kept the house but had to take on the mortgage alone, which was heavy on a single salary. She tried to sell it, but the market was slow. The court filing listed irreconcilable differences, but all their friends knew exactly what happened. Amanda's lawyer tried arguing that Trevor had abandoned the home, but Robert Stern presented the messages and photos from the night of the party, including shots of Amanda on Jake's lap, and the judge wasn't sympathetic. Within 6 months, it was officially dissolved. Trevor moved into a modern loft in Capitol Hill, close to work. It was smaller than the Maple Valley house, but it was his alone, free of tainted memories. He threw himself into work, got promoted to lead software architect, and started traveling to conferences. Slowly, he rebuilt his social life. Brad remained a loyal friend, introducing Trevor to new circles. 8 months after the separation, at a tech conference in Portland, Trevor met Rachel Chen, a data engineer at a startup. She was smart, direct, mature. No games. They started talking, then meeting regularly. Rachel knew about the divorce because Trevor had been honest from the start. "I'm sorry you went through that," she simply said. "But thanks for not letting it turn you bitter." Trevor realized he wasn't bitter. He was free. Amanda didn't have the same luck. The combination of a heavy mortgage, a damaged reputation at work, and social isolation led her to poor decisions. She tried dating, but relationships fizzled out once men learned about the jealousy test. She eventually switched agencies, taking a lower position at an obscure digital marketing firm just to escape the toxic environment. The few friends who stuck around kept their distance. Amanda created dating app profiles, but there was always that moment when she had to explain why she was divorced, and the truth was too humiliating. She tried downplaying it, but people looked her up, found out, and vanished. Jake Sullivan never spoke to her again after moving to Portland. He'd erased that chapter of his life. 2 years after the separation, Trevor was completely rebuilt. He lived with Rachel, who'd moved to Seattle for the relationship and landed a great role at a big tech company. They adopted a golden retriever named Max. Trevor traveled, worked on exciting projects, and had peace. He ran into Amanda once at a grocery store in Bellevue. She was alone, pushing a cart, visibly older and worn out. They made eye contact. Trevor gave a polite nod and kept walking. Amanda stood frozen in the dairy aisle, watching her ex-husband disappear down the aisle with his new girlfriend, both laughing about something, happy. She felt the full weight of her choices. The jealousy test had proven something after all. It had proven that dignity can't be recovered, trust can't be rebuilt, and some burned bridges leave permanent scars. Trevor had rebuilt his life. Amanda was still paying for a 3-hour show at a birthday party. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.